Hello and welcome back to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel. Today we'll be looking at the Toyota Starlet, so grab a cup of tea and we'll have a look at this underrated Japanese classic. Welcome back. Incidentally, if you're into car brochures, this is the channel for you, so please do subscribe. The Toyota Starlet was manufactured from 1973 to 1999 in various different generations. The first generation we didn't get in Europe though, that was a Japan only model. So the first time we actually got to see the Toyota Starlet was in 1978 with this model, the Series 2, sometimes referred to as the 60 series, which ran all the way till 1984. It was an interesting model in many different ways. It was Toyota's baby car, I guess, in that sort of super mini segment, which was starting to grow fast. But anyway, let's have a look at the brochure because there is some interesting little things and some quite unique things about the Starlet. So here it is, the Toyota Starlet 60 series, or Generation 2, however you prefer to refer it to. Quite an attractive little design really. This particular brochure is from 79, remember it first came out in 78, so this is like an early brochure. Later on these headlamps did actually change, around about 1980, they went for a more square headlamp. It was also the first Toyota passenger vehicle to feature rack and pinion steering. Available as a 5 or a 3-door hatchback, it was the beginnings of this sort of hot hatch era, so there were more and more competitors, particularly like from Italy and of course the UK. The Metro was going to be launched soon, so this sort of competition for the super mini section was really growing, but Toyota had some clever little ideas to mean this was quite a good selling car. It was also a car, the 70s were really a time where Britain was starting to embrace cars for other countries. Toyota recognised this, and this is why the second generation came over to Europe and the UK. So we'll open this brochure, we'll have a look. It's an unusual brochure in many ways. I don't know if there's a mistake in there or it was designed to be like this, but we'll have a look and I'll show you that strange, almost like a design flaw to the brochure, but we'll have a look at that as well in the brochure. Overall, the brochure itself is in pretty good condition for 1979. But we'll open the brochure up. And straight to where it's referring to being beautifully versatile. The brochure is only showing 2 different model choices. It's only showing the GL and it's only showing it as a 1 litre or a 1.2. This lovely shade of green I particularly like. The 5-door obviously is the more practical one. 5-door small cars were kind of still a little bit of a novelty. Most of them tended to be 3 doors, so that certainly helped sales with it being a 5-door model. And one of the things what we'll see in the brochure as we go along, when Japan were first starting to come into Europe and the UK, one of the main features was equipment levels. So we'll see quite a few things as kind of like standard on this particular model, which you probably wouldn't have been too familiar with or too accepted. What am I trying to say here? Some of the equipment levels on there aren't what the 70s person would have probably expected on a small car, but there was on the Toyota Starlet, and obviously that did help sales, and that was one of the things the Japanese really did, added those extras on there to make it a more complete package than some of the other vehicles around. And then of course we started associating Japanese cars with reliability, and then they really got a foothold and they started selling really well. We'll have a look at some of this text on here to see what it's got to say for itself, and then we'll go through the brochure. It's not a very big brochure, this one. And as you can see straight away, there's something weird about this brochure. First page, it starts the word cigarette lighter, saying it's got a cigarette lighter, but weird, where's the rest of the text? And we'll come to that in a moment. But basically, what we could get on this particular model, it was a 5-speed gearbox on the 1200 GL and a 4-speed on the 1000 GL. That 5-speed gearbox would have been quite a big thing on that 1200, making it a lot more relaxed on higher speed roads, which small cars weren't really expected to do a great deal at this time. So that would have been quite a big deal for sure, and made it a very user-friendly vehicle. It's also on here talking about some of the features fitted as standards, or door mirror, lockable petrol flap, matte black windscreen wipers to cut down glare, plus a heated rear window with washer. So some features that you would expect today to be on there, but you wouldn't have really expected these features to be on a small car in the late 70s. It talks about that, so matte black windscreen wipers to cut down glare, but the fact are it had intermittent wipers, certainly not something you really expected on a basic car. You'd expect that to be on a much more higher spec vehicle in the late 70s. It then goes on to tell you that it's got this little lever inside to open the boot up, or the hatch up at the back there. Again, something we expect today, but would have been something a little bit more unusual in the late 70s. Finally saying you've got a Toyota toolkit in the back, etc, etc, before it starts looking at the practicality of the car itself. Yes, a pretty high lip, isn't it, by today's standard? They used to do that really for strength before they started making the boot a little bit easier to lift objects in. But nevertheless, still very practical. We've got a split folding seat to make a very useful loading space. Again, something we would expect from a small hatchback today, but not then. And then finally showing this image of all the things we can get. Again, very unusual objects, as they always showed in car brochures. Now then, this is where this car brochure gets a bit weird, and I don't know if anyone else out there has got this particular brochure and it's meant to be like this. I don't know, but you can see we're straight into the centre pages. It's got staples in there, so you'd think that was it. But if you open it up from there, you can see that there's more inside. You can't actually open it up, obviously, because it's stapled. But it's saying in there, I don't know if you'll be able to see or not, but it's saying there the inside story, and this is really where the text starts, really. You're really supposed to read all this first. It kind of like shows you a bit of image of the interior. At the bottom here, I don't know if you can notice, it's saying child-proof locks, but it's kind of like half cut off. This is very unusual as well on these particular models. If I can in fact focus the camera in, is this push button radio. Strangely on this car, it was kind of like inbuilt to the car itself, which was nice, because obviously you couldn't steal it because it was inbuilt. And in the 70s, often a radio was like an optional extra. Here it's kind of like a standard equipment built into the car, so that must have been quite a nice thing to see on your new car, not having to fit a radio in there. Again, showing the Japanese added these little touches on there to make a much better selling vehicle. We've also got a very comprehensive heater controls, much more advanced again than you would expect to see on such a small car. And apparently, these heater controls and the warmth and the fan was far better than you would expect to see on a 70s car. Never mind a 70s, base model. Remember this Toyota, this would have been your lowest entry car. And there it goes, this fancy heater controls. And if we move the brochure over, it's the same story at this side. Again, you can't really open it up because it's got staples in it. I guess if you remove the staples, you could fold the brochure right out. Whether you're expected to remove the staples, whether the dealer was expected to move the staples, or indeed it was never meant to have staples in there, I don't know. But I don't really want to remove the staples just for it being such an unusual a mistake, or whether it was designed to be like that, I don't know. But in here, it's kind of like showing the construction of the car, etc. It's not really very easy to actually see, sadly, so I can't really show this on video too well. But I did just want to show you one thing, if I can actually make it on there. I don't know if you can see this or not, but on this particular picture, if I can show you properly, on this little picture right up here, they actually froze it to show you how good it would start when it was completely frozen. So that's quite an unusual image in there. But like I say, it's just how the strange design of this brochure was. Before we get into the back pages, and we can see the specifications. So we'll zoom in on there and have a better look at that. So here we can see the two models in this particular brochure, the 1200 GL and the 1000 GL. The 1200 GL had 1166cc engine, 4-cylinder petrol, and the 1000 GL, again a 4-cylinder petrol, 993cc. The gearbox was, like I say, on the 1200 GL, a manual 5-speed all synchro unit. Very, very nice for the time. The 1000 had an all synchro 4-speed. Now there's one other unusual fact about the Starlet. When you think about small cars, you all think about them being front wheel drive. These were actually a rear wheel drive design, which is a little bit unusual. For the late 70s, you kind of like moving on to front wheel drive small cars, but this was still a rear wheel drive car at the time. Performance, 1200 GL was 92.4, the 1000 GL was 84 miles per hour. Maximum cruising speed, 80 miles per hour, 0 to 60, 13.6 seconds, and the 1000 GL 0 to 60 was 18.1 seconds. Fuel economy, constant 56, 49.5 for the 1200, 48.3 for the 1000. And then it talks about the steering, like I said, that advanced rack and pinion steering, the first passenger Toyota to be fitted with that, which is quite interesting. And then the equipment, I won't read it all, but you can see it's quite comprehensive for such a small car, something that people weren't really used to in the 70s, particularly on such a small car. And then a few dimensions, etc., the curb weights, etc., etc., and how the badge would appear on the car itself. And like I say at the bottom there, this particular brochure was produced in April 1979. So there we go, the Toyota Starlet, a really great and collectible car. And sometimes when I look back at these car brochures, and I particularly enjoy looking at a lot of the British car brochures, but when I start looking at the Japanese car brochures and what they had on them, the equipment levels, how well they were built, how reliable they were, it's kind of like no wonder that they started selling so well, and in a lot of ways killing off the British motor cars the same way they killed off the British motorcycles. So if they were so good, why isn't there any around? When was the last time you actually saw one of these? Not for a long time, I'm sure. Well, of course they're an old car now, so rust would have killed a lot of them off. They were also, because they were rear wheel drive cars, they kind of like built up a little bit of a following as being a little bit of a track car, a fun car to tour around a banger circuit, and obviously a lot of them got destroyed that way as well. Yes, it was a bit behind the times having a rear-wheel drive car, but in some ways so much more fun, and I'm sure they were a lot of fun to drive. So that is the Toyota Starlet. I don't know if you've got any sort of memories of this car, but please do put it in the comments. It was a common car at one time, like I say, none of them around anymore, and they've got a real collector's following. So please put your comments on there, good or bad. I don't mind whatever you write on there, whether it's good or bad about the car. I'm happy to have real world experiences on there for people to look at. Thank you so much for watching Quarterlight again. Please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you very soon. Take care. Goodbye.